States explore new methods to implement the death penalty, there are signs that public opinion is turning against execution. VOA's Veronica Balderas Iglesias looks at the arguments for and against capital punishment as the United States faces growing international calls to abolish the practice.
The use of the death penalty in the United States is under scrutiny once again after the state of Alabama used nitrogen gas for the first time ever in January to execute a death row inmate. States have been searching for alternative execution methods as drugs for lethal injections have become scarce. But consensus has not been reached yet on what form of execution is considered the most humane.
Some states are looking at a return to the firing squad. Others are looking at electrocution. No method of execution should inflict gratuitous pain and suffering. And that is what states are held to as a standard.
The state of Idaho's botched lethal injection of a serial killer last month prompted renewed calls by the European Union for the United States to follow a worldwide trend and abolish the death penalty. In 2022, about 55 countries worldwide allowed capital punishment.
The death penalty fails to act as deterrent to crime. Quite to the contrary, there are miscarriages of justice still possible, and they are irreversible.
There are signs the tide is changing. 27 of the 50 U.S. states retain the death penalty in their judiciary systems, but only 5 of them executed people last year, putting a total of 24 people to death. And public support for the death penalty for convicted murderers among Democrats has steadily decreased in recent years, according to Gallup polls. Last year, only 32% of Democrats favored it compared to 81% of Republicans.
Concerns about fairness, equality, and simple justice, I think, are driving this change in the national conversation.
While acknowledging the concerns of those who want to abolish the practice, citing cruelty and the possibility of an innocent person on death row, New York Law School professor Robert Blecker doesn't see the death penalty going away completely.
The only moral justification for punishment is retribution. It's because some people commit crimes that are so heinous with an attitude that is so despicable that they simply deserve to die.
As a presidential candidate in 2020, Joe Biden vowed to abolish the death penalty. But under his administration, there have been some inconsistencies, analysts say. The Justice Department declared a moratorium on federal executions in 2021, but greenlit capital prosecutions for mass shooters in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Buffalo, New York. Republican former President Donald Trump, who is seeking a second term in office, has suggested the capital punishment be used for drug dealers. Historically, however, the death penalty has not been a top concern for U.S. voters in election years. Veronica Balderas Iglesias, VOA News, Washington.
Children in Gaza haven't been to school since the Israel-Hamas war began in early October last year, but parents here say right now it is the least of their problems. The food crisis has become more of an emergency. Pediatricians in the South say every child they see is suffering from noticeable psychological and physical trauma and the consequences of hunger. Dr. Saeed Abdul Rahman, a doctor at Abu Yusuf Al-Najjar Hospital, said children were getting sick and their mothers can't produce milk to feed their babies and could not even buy any. The UN says widespread starvation is imminent if access does not improve dramatically. Efforts to bring in aid via air or sea, they say, can provide only a fraction of the massive influx of food that is needed. World Food Program's Deputy Executive Director Carl Scow said they need entry points to northern Gaza that will allow them to deliver enough food for 500,000 people in desperate need. Over 12,000 children have died in the war and 20 of starvation in recent weeks. Meanwhile, the Indonesian island of Bali comes to a standstill for 24 hours as local Hindus observe Nyepi. It is a day of silence that marks the start of the new year in the Balinese Hindu calendar. During Nyepi, Balinese Hindus stay home to undergo self-reflection. Restrictions include bans on lighting fire, working, entertainment, traveling, partying, and more. Public order officers were deployed to enforce the ban, wherein those who do not obey will be temporarily detained and face customary punishment. This is William Theo. Stay informed, get ahead, get the news right here.